took me like 3 days to recover, 4 days to recover from what was the Replay FX Festival, the inaugural 2015 Replay FX Festival in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania this past weekend. I blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. We're going to unpack the Replay FX Festival, dive deep into the weekend, and kind of gather our thoughts here on episode 183 of Coast to Coast Pinball. Let's go. Welcome to Coast to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcasting commentary, and I am a man out of quarters. I was a very tired man out of quarters following the epic, I hate to use the word epic when I get a cease and desist letter from Jared for that one, but following the very exciting, very fun Pinburgh A Division Finals Saturday night, and then the not live from the carpet, from the floor, recording of episode 182 right afterwards with the Sharp brothers and the great Roger Sharp. I had a 5:20 a.m. flight out of Pittsburgh Sunday morning, and I got to bed at roughly 1:30. So if you reverse engineer the math, I slept for about 90 minutes. And Sunday was a bit of a blur, and I've been back at work this week. So the things you do for pinball. What a time, though. Speaking of the crazy things you do for pinball.
Trip reports.
At some point, Mark Steinman, who I believe it was his idea, or at least the folks at Papa, we'll give all the folks credit, because Mark is the head honcho, but trust me, it was a team effort by a lot of people to pull off the Replay FX Festival. If you saw it, you know you might have some sort of idea what went into it. But at some point, somebody thought, hey, let's pull all the games from the Papa facility and buy a bunch more video games and get some more pinball machines and rent a bunch of big bouncy air machines and do this gaming festival in the Pittsburgh Convention Center. You know, it's one thing to hold a large-scale pinball festival where lots of different people bring in a certain amount of games. That's a big endeavor, and there's some people who figured out how to do that very, very well. And what Replay FX did was bring in the majority of the games themselves, which is a very big undertaking. And I was fully prepared for, the story to come out of Replay FX is like, yeah, it was cool, but I figured there'd be something. It's year one of this, aim high type of festival where they're going to go for over 700 pinball machines and arcade machines under one roof for a weekend. And they're going to run the largest match play pinball tournament of all time with the richest prize of $100,000 in the total pot. I mean, you do those two events. I mean, one of those events is huge, but to do them both under one roof, big undertaking. So I figured something would be sort of like the oh yeah, and that was the big thing they're going to have to figure out for next year. But here we are, the following week, and what is there to really say other than it was amazing? It was awesome. It was so smoothly run. The venue's great. It's beautiful. It's situated in a fantastic spot with cool food and cool bars and in a beautiful river and the bridges, and really shows off Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I thought. The negatives that are out there, and there are a few people out there who just can't help themselves but just focus on but what about this? There were a few things. The concrete floor has been brought up quite a bit, and I was prepared for the sore knees and pain through my shins from playing in Pinburgh. So we'll get into Pinburgh. Pinburgh's a grind. It's a long scale type playing situation for tournament pinball, and there was a lot of walking involved. The convention center itself is large, and if you want to see it all, which I did, you walk around a lot. I was waiting for the excruciating pain. Now, I brought multiple pairs of shoes, and I definitely changed them, and it was a hard floor, I get it, but it didn't bother me that bad. Would I love there to be comfy carpet rolled up in between all those pinball machines? Sure. Would I hesitate to go back to Replay FX if it was held again, which I'm hearing it will be held again. If there's not carpet, wouldn't faze me at all. It was awesome. So I think, that I heard some people complaining about some of the vending prices. I don't think there's anything you can do about that in Pennsylvania. It's a union area, it's a union state we're talking. So certain things are just going to be the way they're going to be. When I first got there, I asked a lot of people, so what do you think? What do you think when we were kind of warming up for Pinburg? And some of the players who had played in a fair number of events at the Papa World Headquarters at first gave me the kind of, well, it's certainly not the warm, fuzzy, inviting Papa facilities, because it was a different feel. It felt different than any other pinball event I have been to. The closest thing I could compare Replay FX to in vibe as far as the room goes would be the Northwest show in Seattle. That convention center sort of had the real tall ceilings and the dimly lit room to try and keep the glare off the glass. It had that sort of cold lighting vibe, if you will. Whereas when you go to Papa, they've got the colorful carpet and it just feels warmer. But as the weekend went on, the more people I asked, what do you think? What are your thoughts? The more people I heard just say, this is awesome. Like, this is so cool. There was space between all the games. There was lots of room to spread out. I never felt crowded. I think attendance overall, based on just my eyeballs and no official numbers or reaction from anybody that matters, just on what I saw, attendance was very light on Thursday because it was mainly Pinburg on Thursday. Friday looked to me to be okay. I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was bad. There were people there on Friday. And then as Saturday picked up, if you got up on the catwalk and looked down, or if you really went around and looked at how many games had people on them, there's a lot of people there on Saturday. So I think Saturday was fine. I wasn't there Sunday, so I don't know. I did hear people from the Replay FX group saying they were very happy. So I think that it was a fantastic first-time event. I think the people that ran Pinburg itself deserve just applause all around, because 650 players, tons of no-shows. Like, if you're hearing my podcast, please, if you are registered for an event, especially a match play event, the size and scope of Pinburg, and you're not going to be there, let them know. That was the one tiny hiccup, is in the very first rounds, there was kind of a, well, hey, where is this person? Where's this person? Some of these people were like top-ranked players. Where are they? And they're not coming. And they didn't show up. So that threw off some of the numbers for early groups, and you had some weird situations where instead of groups of 4, you had some groups of 2, some groups of 3, and I even heard a story of a group of 1. And Bowen Cairns explained that to me a little bit, and basically this person shadowed a group of 4 and played scores against that. I don't know, but they had a backup plan for it. They actually had a rule written in case they had to run a group of 1. So they really had everything thought of. I cannot gush enough about Pinburg, and I'll start talking about Pinburg here because that was really the main portion of Thursday and Friday for me, obviously. And I had not played a Pinburg, and I knew it was match play, and I knew that you'd be moving through banks, but I had some of the details just fuzzy in my mind. Because until you've done it, I don't know if you can fully understand the ebbs and the flows of how it works. And once I started talking to some of the players that I was, hanging out with and roaming around with, and started hearing things like, try and go 500. Well, I didn't really understand what that meant. But what that means is if you're in a group of 4 players and you're playing 4 games, you're pretty much playing 12 matches, if that makes sense. Because you're playing the other 3 people on 4 different games. So you have 12 potential wins or losses in each bank, in each group. So session 1, as they might be. So my session 1, if you're interested, which was the very first session, I actually pulled set number 1, the very first set of games. So I had Avengers LE, Aquarius, a 1-player EM, the Addams Family, and Haunted House. Now, I will tell you, I was not very pleased with my first pull of games. Haunted House was the very first game I played. And if you know Haunted House, there are flippers facing the opposite way in the upper playfield and flippers facing up towards you in the lower playfield. And walking into this crazy Replay FX festival with Pinburg coming down on my shoulders, and the first thing you have to do is try and play Haunted House against players who you don't know if you should be intimidated. You really don't, I don't know. I had Evan Bingham, the pinball narcissist, in my first group, which was kind of great because I know who Evan is. We could chat a little bit. I don't know that Evan and I had actually met. Maybe we'd met briefly before at Papa or something, but we hadn't spent any time together, really, that's for sure. So it was nice to get to chat with Evan at least a little bit and kind of calm my nerves, because I had nerves. I didn't have the nerves of, like, a bracketed tournament situation where you're like, oh my gosh, so much, I have to win this or I'm potentially either out or have a strike against me. I had just the general, hey, like, this result counts nerves. Play good, dude, play good. And Haunted House, I did not play good. I played really poorly, in fact. And then Avengers, I played really poorly. But then Aquarius, I won. I beat all three guys on Aquarius, I believe, and then I eked out and that gets you 3 points. So that's how it works. If you're listening and you don't understand how this works, so in each game, somebody's going to get 3 points, somebody's going to get 2 points, somebody's going to get a single point, and somebody's going to get a 0 for fourth place. You're trying to avoid zeros at all costs. So on Haunted House, I got a big fat 0. Like a huge fat, I think I had a third of the points of third place. Like really bad score. Avengers. I think if you've listened to this show long enough, you know that I don't have a lot of love for that game, so I've not really put the time to learn that game. So I was kind of up there being a little flaily, if you will. And I got a big fat 0. Actually, and I only missed that by a little bit. That wasn't a crushing defeat, but a defeat nonetheless. Put me on an old EM, because as you all know, folks, as I come to you not live from San Diego, California, here nearly at midnight on Wednesday night, August 5th, the day before Teresa's birthday, by the way. Tomorrow's her birthday. As I come to you, not live from San Diego, just know that I held up the banner of Mr. EM. Mr. EM is this guy. Not Mystery EM, but Mr. EM. And Old Solid State, as it were. So anyway, I won Aquarius and I got a single point on Addams Family and left multi-ball just hanging there, lit, waiting, flashing at me in the face. So I got 4 points in that first bank, which is not what you want. You want to try and get 6s and above, because that's 50-50. Now, I will not go through every bank with you. I will not bore you with all of that. I will tell you that as I settled into what was happening and how the gameplay worked, I played much better. I think I started off with 2 4s in a row, but then I got a 6, I got an 8, I got a 7. So I ended up in the C division, missing the B division by 2 single points, because everyone was pretty compacted in. And I think I belonged in the C division. That's where I needed to be. So day 2, you come in, and now you're trying to play for the finals, and your points have not reset. You carry your points over that you earned on day 1. That's why a lot of people told me going into Pinburg, every point is very important. So that Addams Family multi-ball that I left hanging open probably was worth at least another point, right? So if that gets me another point, then I'm just 1 point away from being into B. And there was probably, I guarantee you, there was some other game somewhere. Probably actually in session 2 where I had that other 4. Because I played Shrek, Liberty Bell, Class of 1812, and Space Shuttle. Space Shuttle, I actually know for a fact I should have done better than I did. So those 2 points that I could have saved at some point would have gotten me into the B division, etc. Or if I'd had one more, I've been closer to qualifying in C, yada, yada, yada. Butterfly effect, it changes who you play, etc. So day 2 is interesting because now you're grouped with your peers. Now you're playing with all the people who qualified in the same division as you. And in fact, if let's say you're ranked 350th and you're in the C division, the 3 other people with you are ranked right with you. So it might be 349, 350, 351, 352. And if you win more than you lose, you'll probably be ranked higher, so you'll play with better players next round. If you lose a bunch, like I did in session 9 when I choked so hard in session 9 and got a 1, my worst session of the weekend was the session where I went in knowing if I had 2 good sessions, like 2 sevens, I get into the playoffs, into the finals. I did not. I got a session 1, so then my session 10 kind of bumped me down, and I ended up with lower seeded players, and I got an 8 in session 10. But you play the game, not the players, right? We've been told that by a bunch of great players. As fun as that was for me, I ended up in the consolation tournament. I did not qualify. Ended up in consolation tournament. Consolation tournament was held on Saturday, and I think they had something like 240 something players in the consolation tournament. So this is a big consolation tournament. This is a consolation tournament bigger than almost all the tournaments in the country every year, right? And it was a double elimination knockout tournament, and it was groups of 3. So groups of 3 players were assigned to a game, one game, and the 3 of you would go play, and whoever won didn't get a strike. The other 2 players got a strike. So on game 1, I pulled a group, and I'm actually forgetting who the third player was, but it was myself, a player I didn't know, and good friend of Coast2Coast Pinball, Todd McCullough. And Todd is a very good pinball player, much better pinball player than I am. And this is all done through the mobile app. So I was looking at the mobile app, and on the screen it said World Cup Soccer number 4, and number 4 referred to where it was on the floor. They had the banks labeled. So World Cup Soccer number 4, I went and found because it was easy. It was near the front, on the front wall, was down and being roped off and taken away to one of the groups of finals, one of the finals groups, because the A, B, and C final groups were starting at the same time. So I sort of breathed a sigh of relief because I had this sneaky feeling that me versus Todd McCullough on World Cup Soccer was not going to be a pretty thing for me. So I went back to the table, let them know that the game was unavailable, and they assigned us another game. And they assigned us Card Whiz. Card Whiz. And you may or may not know that game. I knew it from the day before when I beat all 3 of the other players on it when I played it in the qualifying stages. So I got Card Whiz, and I thought, I got this. And Todd McCullough let me know he owns a Card Whiz. And I was like, oh no, that's not good. Single player game, bunch of drop targets, and I thought I was done. So the third player in our group did not do all that well. He ended up third, and I guess you can imagine what happened, right? Todd McCullough, who owns Card Whiz and who is a much better player than I am, beat me in the ground. No. I am Mr. EM, and I conquered the big man, Todd McCullough. Yes! And I know he is wanting to kill me right now. So I won on Card Whiz. Miracles do happen, right? So I was happy. It was awesome. No strike for me in round 1. Round 2, I get the little screen popped up, and I can't see the game. I can't see player number 3. I can't see myself in player number 2. All I can see is player number 1. Actually, I was player number 1. All I can see is player number 2. Mats Runsten. Do you know who Mats Runsten is? If you don't, you should, because if I go to ifpapinball.com, I can look right on the front page. I don't have to go far to see Mats Runsten, number 5 player in the world. The world, from Sweden. And I'd never met Mats before, but many people had told me how great of a guy he was. I've always heard that about Mats. Like, oh, I love that guy. He's great. He's a good dude. So once I took my big gulp of great, now I get to go lose to one of the top 5 players in the world, I looked at the game. Big guns. Not a game I like. I had actually played big guns on day 1 of Pinburgh qualifying. I think I'd eked out a couple points maybe just by finding some shot I could hit over and over and over again, but I figured Mats is going to run me to the ground in this game. No, that is not what happened. No. Mats walks up to the game after introducing himself. He actually knew the show. That's flattering when one of the top 5 players in the world, who also didn't even live in the same continent as me, knows the show. That was nice. And he looked down at the game and he said, I don't really know this game. And he started reading the rule card. And I thought, that's a glimmer of hope. And I went on to win the group. And with a score of something like 5.5 million to like 2 million to 1.5 million, and not get a strike again in round 2 against Mats Runsten. That made me very happy. I was very, very happy. And from there, it was pretty much a mess, and I lost 2 more games in a row and was knocked out. 29th place tie. Oh, well. It's funny. I don't actually even remember my third game, although I believe it was a Stern EM, and I don't actually remember what it was. I'm totally blanking. I do know that my fourth game was Paragon, and I know that I played Mark and Colin, and Mark put up like the game of his life on Paragon. He just couldn't miss. Everything Mark tried to hit, he hit, and he smoked us. And all 3 of us had a strike, so 2 of us were getting eliminated that round, and Colin from the great city of Austin, Texas, and I took it on the chin and got knocked out in Paragon. But very fun. Good of them to do that. They don't have to run a loser's bracket tournament, not a bracket, which is a consolation tournament. They don't have to do that, but they did. Really appreciate it. A lot of fun. Had a great time. This is where we take a momentary break of Coast to Coast Pinball, episode 183, so I can find something to drink. And we're back, and I know that seemed like just seconds to you and minutes to me. Funny how that works. So, on to the A finals. We touched on them briefly on episode 182 when we had the new 2015 Pinburg champion Zach Sharp on the show with our crazy impromptu podcast that we literally filmed on the floor. Like, we had canceled our seminar that I was asked, so graciously asked to host with the Sharp family. And Zach was playing in the A final, so we couldn't do the show. And when we went back up there later to possibly go ahead and do it, kind of thinking we were just going to do it for a few people that were going to be there and mainly to record for the show, the room was full. We did it on the floor, as they say. Somebody says, I'm sure. And we literally sat, cross-legged on our butts on the floor with the recorder just kind of in between Roger, Josh, Zach, and I, and just did the show. I had my notes. I asked the questions. The crowd grew as we went on. You'd think it would, people would be like, I'm out of here. I'm going to bed. But it actually, tripled or quadrupled in size. It was really awesome. Had a lot of fun. Roger Sharp, broke some news on the show. If you didn't listen to 182, go back and listen. He talks about possibly trying to buy out Williams. As it was closing, and a few other little tidbits from that stuff. So I thought that was some cool stuff that he said he thought he'd never said in public before, which was pretty awesome. So I got to say, I got to hang out with Roger Sharp a fair bit this weekend just because I was, I wanted to, get to know him a little bit before we jumped into this thing. He'd been on the show before when we were talking Skippy and Predator, but, that was just one little scratching of the surface with Roger. So it was good to get to actually hang out with him. And, man, I tell you, getting to chat kind of, not just history of pinball, because, I've read a lot that Roger's done in Roger's interviews and seen a lot of things, but, his take on modern pinball with that history behind him is just really fun and interesting. So, Zach winning the A finals was a big deal. I called it earlier in the day. I wish I could remember who I said it to. If you're listening, tell me. But I called it. I said, I think there was about, I want to say it was at the round of 16. I said, I feel like Zach might win this. Now, I think I may have also at some point said, Carl D'Angelo is really playing great. He could probably win this. And I may at some other moment might have said, man, Jim Belcito, I just feel like he's got this one. So maybe I hedged my bets a little bit. But I did say at some point, I thought Zach Sharp might win this. So it was kind of high drama going into the finals because you had, big names, and then you had the young guard. You had Kevin Burrell and Raymond Davidson, who are both younger guys, Pacific Northwest, and then you had Keith Owen. You have the man, the greatest tournament pinball player of all time, in the finals, and you have Zach Sharp, who going into this, I think that a lot of people would have considered Zach Sharp the greatest pinball player to never win a major championship, right? When we talk about the major championships, we talk about Pinburg, of course. We talk about the Papa World Championships, and we talk about the IFPA World Championships, and we talk about the European Pinball Championships. So those 4 are considered by the IFPA to be the majors. Kind of like golf does with the majors. That's the pinball majors. And if you looked at who had the most top 4 finishes but never won a major, going in to the tournament, I believe Zach had 6. I'm a little fuzzy if the 7 I see now for him includes this one. But he either had 6 or 7, which was more than anybody who had not won one of those tournaments. So Zach Sharp was very much the best player to never win. So for him to win, and you can see, I put a little video together of some footage I took, because I'm just working on some video things, and took some footage sort of on the fly. Didn't even plan on doing it, but like, hey, Genie X Wong's tripod's right here. I've got my camera. I should film the players playing. Papa's streaming the actual gameplay. I thought I'd just get some footage of the room, because it was awesome. There was like a couple hundred people really excited about this tournament. And to get to film Zach winning it, who I'd been hanging out with all weekend, on and off, was like really cool. And it would have been really cool if Raymond had won. If Raymond had won, what a story. This young guy comes in, I won't say from out of nowhere, certainly not from out of nowhere. He's been playing great pinball, but he's not Zach Sharp, he's not Keith Owen. It would have been a pretty, big story for Raymond to win too, and it would have been awesome to capture that. So it certainly wasn't like, oh, I like Zach, so I'm going to film this. It's how it broke and how it worked. But to see Zach kind of let out this big yell when he wins, that's real. I mean, that's been on him. We talked about that on the show before with him, and so that was great to see. So I can't help, and it must beg the question, now that he has the monkey off his back, who now is the greatest pinball player to never win a major? Well, thankfully, friendly listener, I've been looking at that tonight, and I have some names for you. These 3 players all have 4 top 4s in majors, but no wins. All right? We have Neil Schatz, right? Neil Schatz. Great name. A lot of the top players of today very much will quickly bring up Neil Schatz when you ask them who they looked up to when they were learning how to play top-level pinball. Now, I've never had the pleasure of meeting or seeing Neil Schatz play in person. Many people would absolutely say he changed the game, and the way he plays is revolutionary to some. I do know, looking at his results on IFPA, he does not seem to be as active now, and his ranking, in fact, has slipped. Neil is now ranked, I think, 605th, whereas last year he was ranked 387, and he's been ranked as high as 2nd in the world. So he's clearly not as active, and I don't know why that is. If you're screaming at the thing like there's reasons he doesn't play, I'm just ignorant to that, and I'm sorry. But so Neil Schatz is definitely a name, and with 4 top 4 finishes, it's a big one. The second player on this list is someone who is very active, currently the number 26th ranked player in the world, and that's Dave Stewart. If you look at Dave Stewart's career, storied, long career with lots of big finishes, played at lots of big tournaments, based in the Washington area. Obviously, top 30 player, fantastic tournament player when you look at all these wins at smaller tournaments. But again, 4 top 4s in majors, no wins. And the third name on that list, there's 3 of them that are all up for this kind of best player without a major, is good friend of the show, Josh Sharp. So the monkey has jumped from one brother to another, if you would. I have to say, and this may be my biggest takeaway from Pinburg, and I'm sorry I'm not getting more into replay effects, because there's actually a lot more going on with Highway Pinball and Full Throttle and The Hobbit and just stuff. But I want to. This is my last point, I think, for the night. There was an excitement. There was an amazing amount of energy and fervor for the A finals at Pinburg. There was a crowd that was so enthused to watch these players who are the best. Some of the best players at this hobby, especially in the competitive setting. They're the best at high-class quote, professional pinball. People were into it. And some things lined up to make it such a great atmosphere, because it was Saturday night. The show still had another day. Most people were there to still play in the consolation, to play in A, B, or C finals, to be there. They weren't flying out early the next morning or late that night because it wasn't Sunday. So it really struck me after watching the finals of Papa A earlier this year, where there was, I don't know, 35, 40 people there, all told, to watch Keith Elwin win his championship. The year before with Kaylee, maybe a few more. Watching the Expo final from last year, the Expo tournament, I left the tournament early in the morning when they were starting, got on a plane, flew home from Chicago to San Diego, had dinner with Teresa, tucked her in, came in here, and watched the last 2 hours of that tournament because it went on forever. And there was nobody there. There was literally no, they were sweeping up behind the players in the hall there in Chicago, or in Wheeling, Illinois. So to have this event end with 200 to 300 people in the Pittsburgh Convention Center cheering on these players, giving huge applause when they see amazing saves and shots happening on the big screens, because you have some very informed people there. You have a bunch of pinball players. There's a shot on Super Orbiter. I'm tired. That was the cash-in shot that people just exploded every time one of the guys hit the shot. Big tournaments need to figure this out. There's an equation here, and the equation includes things that weren't there to make it even better. But I think that if you're holding an event, a festival, if you will, so if you're the Texas Pinball Festival, or you're the Southern Fried Game Room Expo, or your Expo in Chicago, the finals of the A division need to be Saturday night. If you want to hold a consolation thing the next day, if you want to bump the B and the C finals to the next day, fine. The A finals, the main event, needs to be Saturday night in prime time where everybody can see it. It's an event. It's exciting. It will grow competitive pinball from where it's at right now. We can't wait for some magical television show that's it's the World Series of Pinball with Chris Moneymaker. He plays the Addams Family now. We can't wait for that. And we can't wait for, some reality show to blow pinball open. It needs to grow grassroots style from within at our own events. And our events right now are doing competitive pinball a huge disservice. This late night Sunday finish with nobody left there sucks. I'll just call it like it is. It sucks. We need to be on Saturday night. We need to have announcers. And when I say announcers, I don't mean Papa TV's coverage announcing what the play. That's fantastic. We need to announce the players as they step up to machines. We need to announce if we're going to have players picking machines to, quote, drive the bus. We need to have that announced. If players are picking order, we need to announce that to the crowd. We need a scoreboard. Amazing to me that the only way I actually knew what the scores were going into the final 4 players was to look over at Kevin Martin's clipboard and see what was written on it. That drove me nuts when I realized it. And to hear all these people behind me going, who's in, who's out, who's in? People had no idea. I don't know if we just weren't ready for all these people to be there, but they were there and they wanted to know what was going on. We have to make it more of a friendly event to the people in the room attending it. We need to do everything we can to get the spotlight on these players. We need to build it up. It needs to be stamped on the program of these shows and events. A finals main event. Call it the main event. If you want to play down to where you have 4 players and then take an hour break, reset up the 4 games or the 6 games or whatever it is, reset them up, stage the area, call it the main event. Great idea. Glad I just had it. Let's do that because it was so fun. It was so awesome. I was so proud of the Papa crew, the Pinburg organization, the Replay FX, the players, and pinball. I was just proud of pinball to have that moment with friends, family, and complete strangers. I stood in the back for a while, and I heard people who were just there for the show going, oh my gosh, this is like, these are the great players. Look at the TVs, because the tall double TVs up on top of each other showing the streaming games, it's impressive. It looks good. And if we're going to go through all that, we need to have a scoreboard with everyone's names, with their seedings, make the scoring simple to understand, show people being eliminated, and really tell the story. And that will be more interesting. Because if it's not interesting to the person walking by, it's not going to be interesting to the person on their computer screen at home or on their television at home ever. So anyway, soapbox I'm stepping down from. It was so much fun. I had a blast. If you haven't seen my little video I put together, it's there's no audio from it because the audio off my camera is garbage. I've had a couple requests for, hey, could you take the music out and just play the audio? Maybe, but I'd have to go redo it, and I just don't want to do it. But it's something I'm thinking about. Like, how do we show off these tournaments after the fact? Papa TV's awesome, but it's, these tournaments aren't that friendly for people who aren't obsessed like we are. They go on a long time. So, in any case, that's going to be Coast to Coast Pinball 183. I'm going to have to talk Hobbit, Full Throttle, some boutique games I played, some one-off real, in the garage type of games I got to play, and some other thoughts on some great emails I've had coming off of Replay FX on next episode. I got to put this one in the can, get to sleep. I got to close with this, though. I met so many people at Replay FX, played in Pinburg with them, met them on the floor, met them on the escalators, met them in restaurants that listened to the show. And I told somebody at some point, somebody said, hey man, I just want to come up and tell you that I listened to the show and they said something really nice, appreciate what I do, it makes my drives to work, the whole thing. They said basically what I really love to hear. And I heard enough things like that I just want to say thank you. It's so much fun being a part of this hobby in this little way that I am. And thanks. It was awesome. I had a blast. It was good times. There's more to come. My sites are already... I got Mad Roll and Pinball coming up at the end of the August month in Madison, Wisconsin. Got my plane tickets booked and my hotel booked for Expo in Chicago. A lot of fun. And just for those wondering, I don't think I ever said it, my record overall at Pinburg, 55 and 65. So next year we're going to be above 500. That's my goal. Anyway, a little scattered there, sorry. Episode 183. See you later.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.